project is my pandemic photo project. It started at the beginning of COVID and went through till today. I'm a painter and I was uncomfortable in my studio, so I brought some supplies home thinking that I would work at home. And one very sunny day, I looked down at the floor and saw a spectrum, full spectrum on the floor from a vase that was in the window, on the windowsill. And at that moment, I thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. I'm basically interested in color and light in my painting. And I thought, well, I have a plan. So that's how that began. When I started working, I didn't know that this would be something I would be doing for a year. And it was very different from my process with painting. In painting, you start with something and you build up. You have layers. I'm an abstract painter. I taught color for many years at University of Pennsylvania, so I'm very involved with color. Most of my paintings are just about color. And I had these prisms in the house from my teaching, so I was prepared to mess around with them with the light that was coming in the window. But what I wasn't prepared for was the complexity of the technical aspects of the camera. So I had to learn that. I had to learn Photoshop once I finished the work. And then the processing is a whole other thing because you're not in control. So you have complete control when you're painting. It's up to you, what you want to do and how you want to do it. And this is a more communal kind of work. And it's very interesting, and I don't mind it. It's just a lot more complicated and very clean. It's very clean work.
Are these compositions organized in real space, or was the organization done in Photoshop?
These are only Photoshop to get rid of fingerprints and dust and changing a little bit of the exposure. I don't do a lot of creative work with the Photoshop. It's more like cleanup. I set these objects up, and they're all objects that I found around the house, or things that I searched on Amazon that I needed, and they're very small. It's usually about 12 by 12 inch little piece of paper underneath, or sometimes I actually use the panels that I paint on. So they have a lot of texture in them. When I have the color is focused on some of these areas, you get the texture of the gesso that goes on the panels. So I'm using everything I can think of in order to make a composition even before I take the picture.
Why does it look like things are dancing in air?
Because they're actually dancing in light.
Things in the outside world affected what you were putting into your photographs?
Well, first of all, it was a blessing that I got to do this work, because as an artist, I like to work alone. And I had all the time in the world to be alone with my prisms and do whatever I wanted to do. And an artist needs that kind of time. So that was one thing that was really wonderful about the project for me. But then confronting the world was another aspect to it, because every day something happened while we were in the pandemic and the election and the insurrection. It was, as they kept saying, unprecedented. So many of these works have to do with what was going on in the world and in my world, which is why the title is Refracted World. What's first is the quality of light that day, how bright it is, where it is in my house, and that determines the setup. And many times It was a very bright day, so that when you take photographs, you have to have the sun go into the shade. So the sun is in the shade, so that's why there's so much black on the backgrounds of these. You can't see the light if there's no shade. So that was a metaphor for how life was. You know, even though everything was dark, there were these spots of light. So that's where I start with what colors I'm going to use, what colors I see, how I'm going to control the colors. All the colors are in harmony because they are the colors of the spectrum. So that was a much easier way of working than painting. There were always harmony in that. The world was very chaotic. You know, when was this going to end? When am I going to get the vaccine? How we had to try to find the vaccine in the beginning, and the stress that caused, because we couldn't go out until we got the vaccine. We wanted everyone to get it too. So that whole process was very anxiety-producing, and I think that these two show that kind of anxiety with the angles and the focus, non-focus, kind of crumbling situation with where the shapes are. This one is called Lucky because after I actually did get the vaccine, that was lucky that I had found this church where I could wait for 2 hours in the cold and get my vaccine, where I was very happy. So, and we have loops, which are not in a lot of these pieces, because not only was the fact that I had been vaccinated, it was also lucky that I found a way to make the loops with the light, which was not too easy, but I found a way to do it because I was trying to get some more positive kind of energy, and I think the colors also are more positive, and also the shapes.
That's me, Drew Zimmerman, waiting in front of Muse Gallery for my show to start in August, Guerilla Theater. Reminds me of the old Philadelphia Zoo commercial. You know, the one where there are zoo keys and all the animals are waiting for you?
Storybooks and zoo keys together guide you through. A world of new excitement awaits you at the zoo.
I'm standing next to the sign for my show at the Muse Gallery in August, a show called Guerilla Theater, a term that comes from San Francisco street performances of the 1960s. A company there determined that the basic relationship between an audience and a performer is a fascist one, where the performer forces the audience to watch something and directs their sensibilities in a certain way. And that's how I feel about my art. You send it out there and you don't know what the reaction is going to be. And why should artistic activity be different from any other human endeavor?
The three pieces in the center of this sign were made between 1984 and 2004, the Some Fun Mouse series, which expresses my interest in both papier-mâché and toy making. These are in fact a biodegradable version of G.I. Joe action figures made from found materials in any neighborhood with a cat. When I started working with papier-mâché back in 1980, my first instincts were practical. I immediately started to make marionettes. For a while I was even a street performer in Head House Square. The puppet here is from a 2008 show called The Dime Novelties, and this is Bob and Bing, the carnival MCs. Also in that show is Presley Golem, the monster of the Midway, who terrorizes the performers. Coming up, we're going to see the puppet that can escape from anything, young Eric Weiss, as played by Tony Curtis.
Sealed in a bag and locked in a heavy trunk, I was dropped through an axe that hole in bitter winters.
This 4-foot in diameter sculpture labyrinth was actually 4 years in the making, 1986 to 1990. It has a practical origin like the marionettes. I was a movie clerk at a video store in the Great Northeast, and I built this to promote the movie Labyrinth starring David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly, which, as you recall, included a lot of fanciful puppets.
Besides toys and games, a theme I explore in Guerilla Theater is the nature of the artistic impulse and the career of the artist as a subject. I've done several pieces in this show that parody different artists and artistic movements and express my view that a lot of the movements in art are temporary assignments of the times in which they're created and not necessarily some superior aesthetic. And there's no reason to cling to any one way of expression as if it's superior to all others.
My work, A Tribute to Francis Bacon, combines puppetry, my love of old-time toys, and insights I have into the obsessions of one of my favorite artists, Francis Bacon, especially his obsessions with the still photos of male wrestlers by Edward Muybridge. Notice that the Rock'em Sock'em robots actually replicate the composition of some of Bacon's most famous pictures. I execute further satires of artists and their particular art movements with which they're associated in a form that I like to call relief collage. That's where I take papier-mâché strips and apply them to a cardboard ground in such a way that the image is raised up in relief from the background. None of my works use paint or paint brushes. Instead, I build the images using torn newspaper or magazine advertisements, applying the color in a parody of what the painter does.
I have a 6-foot tall sculpture I call Head Case that is a sort of inverted mask, and it represents the suitcase of personality that we are all burdened with, and that moment when the suitcase comes flying open and one realizes their entire personality of history, likes and dislikes, is a sort of fabrication. An uncomfortable truth of the art market is that even as artists of color gain greater representation, the art world system of value remains built on principles of exclusion and ownership. This affects all of us. When the voices and images of certain groups are stifled, we all lose. As one of Philadelphia's oldest cooperative art galleries, Muse Gallery has spent much time over the last year discussing how to address this situation. Being an artist and creating art can be an expensive endeavor. It's a difficult path for anyone to take, and particularly so for those who have been marginalized or who have few resources.
We are offering a 2-year membership to any black artist with a strong commitment to art making and high quality work. This means that the monthly dues will be waived. The member will still be responsible for any costs associated with putting on their solo exhibition. The membership provides a close-knit community of experienced professional artists, a month-long solo show in our highly visible location within the 2-year commitment, 1 to 2 group shows, and monthly mutual critiques.
What we require from you is the commitment to attend monthly meetings and gallery sitting 1 day per month. If you're interested, please visit MuseGalleryPhiladelphia.com and follow the application procedure.